Joran van der Sloot admitted to bludgeoning Natalee Holloway to death in an Alabama court today. He'd recently been extradited to Alabama for his participation in an extortion plot against her family. He's the last person to ever see Natalee Holloway when she was on her high school graduation trip in Aruba in 2005. And he's literally told lie after lie about what happened. He even demanded $25,000 from her grieving mother in exchange for telling her where her body was. And when he failed to follow through, that is extortion, and that is why he is now in Alabama. He pled guilty to this extortion, and his plea deal is conditional on whether or not he tells them how she died and where her body is. And things are different now since he's on American turf, so maybe we should believe him. So in court today, he said that he bludgeoned her to death when she rejected him, and then he went home to watch X-rated videos. And after this, the Holloway family's lawyer told NBC that they would no longer be searching for her remains. There's a lot of theories about where Natalee Holloway's body was stored, and multiple excavations have found nothing. So Aruba's an island, and I truly believe that she was dumped in the ocean and there's no official way to really find her. His initial story was that she wanted to go see sharks, and a lot of people think that maybe she was fed to them. But it's also possible that they dumped her and her body was swept away by the current, or other animals just ended up carrying pieces of her remains away and eating them. Almost 20 years after her disappearance, it seems like we might have answers, but it's also so hard to believe him since he's lied so many times. But also, if he didn't have anything to do with this, then why would he lie? Let me know what you guys think in the comments.
Breaking news, Joran van der Sloot has now confessed to taking the life of Natalee Holloway and provided details on how he did it. He made his confession during an interview conducted by his attorney. This was then provided to U.S. authorities as part of a plea deal. During the interview, he was able to provide graphic details of the crime. He said that he and Natalee lay down on a beach together at night and started kissing. As kissing continued, he started touching her. When she told him no to stop, he continued touching her anyway. She, quote, kneed him in the crotch. He then says he stood up and kicked her, quote, extremely hard in the face. Then he found a large cinder block and hit her with it. Upon seeing what he had done, he moved her body into the ocean until the water was up to his knees and pushed her out to sea. However, provided his confession, he cannot be charged in the U.S. Natalee Holloway's mother said that his confession was also verified with a polygraph. For details on other charges that he faced today, you can click the playlist below. I'll keep you guys updated. What do you think? Drop in the comments.
Welcome to Saw Traps That I Would Survive, because I have at least 2 brain cells to rub together. And today we're talking about the eye suction trap from Saw X. Spoilers, obviously. The way the trap works, this guy is restrained into this chair and he has 60 seconds before his eyes get sucked out of his head by these tubes. In order to prevent that from happening, he has to click this dial 5 times across, and each time it goes up 1 on the dial, one of his fingers will bend completely upwards, breaking it at the knuckle. Some of you may be saying, Bailey, you can live without your eyes. One of the writers actually shared on Reddit, I believe it was Josh Stolberg, he shared an infographic that if your eyes were to get sucked out of your head like this, pieces of brain matter would also go with it. So who knows, right? Regardless, I would just simply click all the way through to number 5. I would just do it. I have experienced trauma to the hands before, and there are so many nerve endings in your hands. Once that pain starts, it's all gonna go to your head, and it's not gonna matter how many of those fingers are breaking. Your senses are gonna get overwhelmed. You just gotta do it. You just gotta be fast.
Morbid Facts, Part 381. When she was a child, Oprah Winfrey's family was so poor that she had to wear dresses made out of potato sacks to school. She was molested several times by her own family members and got pregnant by the age of 14 after running away from home. Oprah was apparently in so much shame at the time that she never even named her son, who was born prematurely and died shortly after birth. Squeezing a man's nuts very tightly can have roughly the same effect as using an EpiPen. But it may also kill them in the process, because squeezing someone's balls hard enough can raise their adrenaline to dangerous levels. This video shows the brainwaves of a man experiencing an epileptic seizure. Seizures can have many different causes that result in a burst of uncontrolled electrical activity in the brain. Many times the patient loses consciousness, but otherwise they may experience strong tingling, anxiety, or deja vu.
This is like a dark psychology test. This is 8 pictures of different people that look scary. Now, I want you guys to pick who you think the scariest is.
I have one.
Okay.
I'm not gonna say it.
You have one?
I have one.
All right, Gavin, show me yours first.
Number 5.
Okay, Gavin said number 5. I got the same one,
Oh,
which is
fuck.
interesting.
Yeah?
And it makes sense. This is crazy, right? Each person has a different description and it breaks down like your personality based on it.
Yeah.
So if you're most afraid of this picture, the hysteric, you're probably repressing attention-seeking tendencies. You were probably told as a child not to show off by adults or peers. You're probably a modest and sincere person, but deep down, you love to be the center of attention and charming others.
Yo, Loki. I chose 5 too, bro. You chose
5? Oh, you chose 5 too?
Yeah, I chose 5 too.
All right. Though you're rarely the center of attention, when you are, you're ecstatic and you're likely someone who pays attention to detail, as evidence of the amount of effort you put into your appearance.
Yeah.
So the more you care about yourself, like you're putting on nice clothes, blah, 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 that's evidence of you feeling that way. This could also be your subconscious self showing off as your self-conscious or conscious self continues to act modestly. Now, the repression is a desire for attention and admiration, denies it by acting modestly, staying out of the spotlight, but the sublimination is it chooses rare or
Breaking news, Alex Murdaugh's conviction has been suspended. The South Carolina Court of Appeals has granted Alex Murdaugh's motion to suspend his conviction appeal. It now sent the case back to circuit court to consider allegations of jury tampering. This decision is the first step in a quest for a new trial. The judge signed off on this order on Tuesday. They said, quote, "We intend to proceed expeditiously and we will seek a full-blown evidentiary hearing addressing the serious allegations pertaining to improper jury communications by the clerk of court." The Attorney General's office said, quote, "They would respond through legal process at the appropriate time." I'll keep you guys updated. What do you think? Drop in the comments.
The Funky Town Killers might have another video and I'm about to explain it. The video begins in a well-lit white room with white tiles on the floor. The tiles look extremely identical to the ones in Funky Town. In the opening seconds of the video, one of the killers is holding up a still beating heart to the camera, and while this is happening, you can hear the cameraman laughing hysterically. And you then realize there are multiple cartel members in the room and there are 2 dead guys lying on the ground. After the opening seconds, the camera goes to one of the victims' corpses on the ground, and since there are 2 dead victims with their hearts ripped out of their bodies, there is literally blood everywhere. The camera then stays on one of the victims' bodies, and one of the cartel members then starts to behead him. And once the beheading was completed, the cartel members began to play soccer with the victim's head. The cameraman gets involved, and they all begin kicking the head around, having fun. They are laughing, cracking jokes, and it's absolutely sickening. Every time the head is kicked around, you see the blood trail it leaves behind on the white tile floor. After this, they then pose with the head and hold it up to the camera. The camera then pans to the other victim's body on the floor, and you can see another cartel member dismembering the victim's arm. You see him slicing away with a knife. The camera then goes back to the other victim's body, and you can see that they removed one of his arms. And at this point, one of the cartel members gets down on his knees and begins having an arm wrestle with the severed arm of the victim, just laughing. It's absolutely horrible and disturbing, and the video then concludes. Now, the video doesn't show the killings, but it's safe to assume they were carried out shortly before the video was recorded, since at the beginning of the video there was a beating heart. Now, not only is the brutal nature of the video terrifying, but also the setting of it. The setting looks exactly like the setting of the infamous video Funky Town. And many people who saw both videos are convinced it's the same room Funky Town was done in. But nothing at this point is 100% confirmed. But assuming from the gruesome nature of the video and the white tiles, I do believe this was the same room Funky Town was done in. This video is extremely disturbing, and the cartel members laughing, having a good time, while kicking the victim's head around is just something you don't want to see. Please never go searching for this video because you will regret it.
Morbid Facts, Part 363. While serving a life sentence for murder, Rocky Beeman brutally murdered a fellow inmate who was serving a life sentence for essaying a 10-year-old girl. But despite this, Beeman was later given a child rapist as his cellmate, who he proceeded to brutally murder as well. He said he resented sex offenders and that killing them gave him, quote, "the best feeling I've had in a long time." He also said the only way to stop him from killing them was to execute him. Beeman was eventually sentenced to death, but took his own life while on death row in 2020. Grady Stiles Jr. was born in 1937 with a rare genetic condition known as ectrodactyly, which gave him claw-like hands and feet. He became a circus performer under the name Lobster Boy, but was known to be a viciously abusive alcoholic in person. In 1978, he was convicted of murdering his daughter's fiancé on the day before their wedding. He openly confessed to the murder but wasn't sent to prison since no state institution had the resources for an inmate with his condition. Stiles continued to perform until 1992 when he was murdered by a hitman hired by his wife and son.
So this woman's been held captive and put through hell at this guy's house for 2 days. The first day he was really on the ball, really alert, she couldn't make a move. But the second night, the guy's fast asleep and his phone starts going off for quite a decent amount of time and he doesn't move a muscle. Now the woman is bound to the bed with like a sweater or something. She manages to wiggle out of that, snatches that phone to make this 911 call.
911, what is the address to your emergency? 4th Street, Laundromat. I've been exhausted. Where's she at now? Asleep. I'm in the bedroom with them. He's got a taser. Who abducted you? Sean, Great. Oh, that won't come up. Just set the phone down. Are you still there? I'm a stalker.
Where is he?
Bedroom sleeping. Okay, they have her.
Cops go to this house. It's an abandoned house. They arrest the guy, and they really had no idea what they were walking into. Sean Great had a long history of crimes like burglary and lots of domestic violence. I mean, one of his ex-girlfriends called the cops, and they found him hiding underneath her couch with a butcher knife. So just to give you an idea about who this guy already is, he did a lot of stints in the slammer and became homeless, basically. He really just kind of screwed up his whole life. When Sean Great is in custody and they're talking to him about this kidnapping, some other information comes out pretty quickly. He's basically like, hey, you should go back to that house. And in a duct-taped, sealed closet, they find underneath a pile of clothes the decomposing remains of a woman who'd been missing for a little while. They go down to the basement and same thing, they find another woman's remains under a pile of garbage. That's not even it. He tells police, there's another 3 that you guys don't even know about yet. 2 of them the police had already found and hadn't linked a suspect to, but then Great led them to the remains of the other one. His first one was all the way back in 2006. Interestingly though, after the 2006 one, he took like a 9-year hiatus and had only just recently, before he was caught in 2016, started to accelerate his crimes. Sean Great would target troubled women, manipulate them, and just try and get things out of them. And with all the women that he killed, he basically said they had it coming. They wronged him in some way. You know, one woman stole $4 from him. Now, you know how a lot of killers, they'll ask for the death penalty. They don't want to live anymore. Well, Sean Great really didn't want to die, but the judge said screw that, gave him the death penalty.
During the Jingnan Rebellion, Fang Xiaoru found himself in a pivotal role as a close advisor to the Jianwen Emperor. He staunchly supported the legitimacy of the Jianwen Emperor's rule. When the Prince of Yan, Zhu Di, orchestrated the usurpation of the throne in 1402 to become the Yongle Emperor, he summoned Fang to write an inaugural address to justify his actions. When summoned by Zhu Di, he refused to write the inauguration address that would legitimize the usurpation. In response to Fang's refusal, Zhu Di threatened to execute 9 degrees of kinship, to which Fang responded, "Never mind 9 agnates, I am fine with 10. Tragically, his wish was granted, resulting in the horrifying extermination of 10 degrees of kinship. In addition to his own execution, 873 people, including his blood relations, students, and peers, were executed. Fang Xiaoru's execution was carried out through the gruesome method of waist severing. This method involved severing the victim's body at the waist, resulting in a particularly gruesome and agonizing form of execution. Allegedly, Fang Xiaoru, in a final act of defiance, dipped his finger in his own blood and wrote the Chinese character, Kuwen, on the ground, signifying usurper.
You're telling me nobody else finds it extremely weird that both the surviving victims in the Idaho 4 case were up at the time their friends were being murdered and texting one another?
Something is really fishy here.
Breaking news, Jordan Vandersloot has pled guilty. He is currently facing charges of extortion and wire fraud in Alabama. This stems from 2010 when he contacted Natalee Holloway's mother. At that time, he claimed he would reveal the location of Natalee's body in exchange for $250,000 with $25,000 paid up front. It was at that time Beth Holloway, Natalee's mother, her attorney, met with Vandersloot and his attorney in a hotel and gave him $10,000. Shortly after, Natalee's mother wired another $15,000 to his bank account. I'll keep you guys updated on any developments in this case. What do you think? Drop in the comments.
The book of Revelation, also known as the Apocalypse of John, is the final book of the New Testament in the Christian Bible. It is a highly symbolic and visionary text attributed to the Apostle John. The book is written in apocalyptic literature style, characterized by vivid and dramatic imagery, mysterious symbols, and prophetic messages about the future. The book of Revelation presents a series of visions that John claims to have received while in exile on the island of Patmos. These visions depict cosmic battles, divine judgments, and the ultimate triumph of good over evil. The central figure is Jesus Christ, depicted as the Lamb of God who brings salvation and ushers in the final judgment. Throughout the text, there are references to various symbols, such as the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, the 7 seals, 7 trumpets, and 7 bowls. These symbols represent various aspects of divine plans, cosmic events, and human actions. The book is a source of diverse interpretations, with some viewing it as a literal prophecy of future events, and others understanding it as a symbolic depiction of spiritual truths. It has inspired a wide range of artistic, theological, and cultural expressions throughout history. Regardless of its interpretations, the Book of Revelation remains a significant and captivating piece of religious literature that continues to intrigue and provoke thought.
Jean-Pierre Moulin, a prominent figure in the French resistance during World War II, played a crucial role in the fight against Nazi occupation. Tragically, his dedication to the resistance movement led to his arrest and brutal torture by the Gestapo. On 21 June 1943, Moulin was arrested, along with several other resistance leaders, during a meeting at Dr. Frédéric Dugoujon's home in Caluire-et-Cuire. This arrest marked a significant blow to the French resistance. Klaus Barbie, notorious as the head of the Gestapo in Lyon, subjected Moulin to horrific torture. Witnesses reported that Moulin endured the removal of his fingernails using hot needles, the shattering of his knuckles by repeatedly closing a door on his hand, and severe beatings that left his face unrecognizable. The exact circumstances of Jean Moulin's death remain the subject of debate. While his death certificate indicated that he died near or in the train station of Metz, there are conflicting reports about when and where he passed away.
I had to hold my own severed head to stay alive. You cannot imagine the ordeal I endured. Stick around until the end to hear the full story. My name is Alison Bada, and I'm about to share with you the horrific events that forever changed my life. On a fateful night in South Africa, at the age of 27, I fell victim to a brutal assault. 2 men approached me, raped me, and then attempted to take my life. They brutally stabbed me 30 times in the abdomen and 16 times in the neck. As I was fighting for my life, I held onto my head, trying to keep it attached to my body. The viciousness of the assault nearly severed my neck completely. With blood-soaked hands, I clung onto the remnants of my life as my insides threatened to spill from the multiple stab wounds in my abdomen. Words cannot express the intense pain and horror I felt in that moment. With the last of my strength, I wrote my attackers' names in the sand, ensuring evidence of their cruelty and that they would face justice. I managed to crawl to the road where I was eventually found and rescued. My resilience and determination enabled me to survive, despite my life-threatening injuries. My harrowing story inspired a movie named after me. Please leave a Dovey emoji and a heart in the comments to show your support. Like and follow if you enjoy this kind of content, and feel free to suggest any true crime stories you'd like to see on this account.
Artifact Porn, Part 28. This creepy-looking costume is actually a 16th century scuba suit designed by Leonardo da Vinci. It was equipped with 2 breathing tubes attached to a cork diving bell floating on the surface. While working in the water city of Venice, Da Vinci designed the suit for sneak attacks on enemy ships from underwater. This golden throne chair was found in the tomb of King Tut. Its colors haven't faded over 3,000 years, highlighting the impressive skills of ancient Egyptian craftsmen. Here's the anchor of a 13th century Mongol invasion ship that was just recently lifted out of the sea near Nagasaki, Japan. Discovered in a dried-up lake bed in New Mexico, this mile-long path of footprints is the longest prehistoric human trail ever found. The 12,000-year-old tracks belong to a toddler and its young adult mother who was in a hurry and sometimes carried the child on her back. It was most likely a perilous journey since scientists also found the footprints of mammoths, giant sloths, direwolves, and saber-toothed tigers at the same site.
Village lockups, commonly found in England and Wales during the 18th and 19th centuries, served as vital structures for the temporary detention of individuals who posed a variety of disturbances to rural communities. Crimes such as theft, burglary, drunkenness, and livestock theft were prevalent, and the existing law enforcement mechanisms were often inadequate. As a result, village lockups became a solution to detain individuals who caused disturbances and maintain order within these communities. Village lockups typically lacked proper toilet facilities, and this could lead to unsanitary conditions. Due to their temporary nature, lockups might not have been cleaned regularly, especially if they were used frequently. In some cases, lockups might have been crowded with multiple detainees, exacerbating the potential for unsanitary conditions. Most lockups were small, freestanding buildings typically constructed from brick, stone, and timber.
I am about to tell you about one of the most disgusting murders of the Victorian era, and you are just so unprepared for how this ends. There's literally nothing that could prepare you for how this ends. This is Miss Julia Thomas, and she was a 54-year-old school teacher, she was a widow, and she lived in Richmond. And in 1879, she hires a maid. This maid is called Kate Webster. Little does Julia know, Kate Webster has a massive criminal record back in Ireland. We're talking like 38 charges of grand larceny. Within the space of a month, their relationship has deteriorated rapidly. Kate told people that her new employer was annoying, always going over places she's already cleaned, telling her things she hasn't done properly. And Julia's complaining to her friends that her new maid is aggressive and that she's afraid to be alone with her. So Kate comes home drunk one night from the pub, and her and Julia have an argument. And what happened next, Kate confessed later in court that she threw Julia down a flight of stairs. Julia was still conscious at the bottom, and to stop her from screaming, she strangled her to death. The neighbors claimed they only heard a small thud, but meanwhile next door, Kate was getting to the business of dismembering her boss with a razor and boiling her limbs. I know this is already wild, but you're still not going to be able to guess how this ends. Kate dressed in Julia's clothing and assumed her identity. Meanwhile, she cleaned her house and started packing away Julia's boiled limbs into a hat bag. The only thing she couldn't fit in the hat bag was Julia's head, so she buried it in the stables of a nearby pub. It's not actually confirmed that this happened, but it was claimed that Kate sold Julia's rendered fat to the pub as beef dripping. Kate then went to visit her friends, dressed in Julia's clothes, carrying Julia's boiled body in a hat bag, and told them to call her Julia's name. Later that evening, she dropped the hat bag containing Julia's body into the river. But the next day, it washed up on the shores of the Thames. And Kate was quickly found out after that, and it was described at the time as one of the most awful and sensational chapters in the annals of human wickedness. Oh, also, this is Kate, by the way. I didn't even show you her until now. Look at that face! Kate confessed in full, and she was hanged a few months later. But they never found Julia's head. She just never told them where it was. They assumed that she just dumped it in the river with the rest of her, but if you remember, she buried it in the pub. And so 131 years later, in 2010, Sir David Attenborough discovered her skull when he was doing renovations in his garden. Not joking, that's her skull. That's her skull in David Attenborough's back garden. Have a good day.
Since 1880, the Earth's temperature has only risen about 2 degrees Fahrenheit on average.
What's the conversion on that?
I have no idea.
Yeah, to be truthful, I don't even know how cold 1 Celsius is.
Me neither.
0 is freezing, 100 is boiling.
Celsius?
Yeah.
So what's the global temperature now on Earth?
I don't know that. I just know it's...
Look at...
I think 1 Celsius is equivalent to 32 Fahrenheit. So...
No. 1 Celsius is not 32 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, it might be, because if 0 is freezing,
wait,
32 degrees Fahrenheit would be...
100 is just 100 is boiling. To 12. What am I Googling? We've asked so many questions.
The global temperature right now.
Well, and then what is a Celsius to a Fahrenheit?
The average surface temperature on Earth is approximately 15 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
So then do 13.
What are we accomplishing here?
Moving on.
Do 13 Celsius to Fahrenheit.
Where'd you get 13?
15 minus 2, right?
Yeah.
Can we do the math on that?
No.
Okay.
Breaking news, a deceased man was mistaken for Halloween decorations for days. Authorities say the deceased 34-year-old was found near an abandoned home on October 10th. Paul came in as a deceased body found near an abandoned home. During the investigation, authorities found out that the groundskeeper had actually seen the body the day before. However, he mowed around it, thinking it was a Halloween decoration. Preliminary findings of an autopsy ruled out signs of assault or trauma on the body. However, at this time, investigators are still awaiting the toxicology report to determine a COD. I'll keep you guys updated. What do you think? Drop in the comments.
The 9 familial exterminations was a severe form of collective punishment in pre-modern China, Korea, and Vietnam. This punishment was typically associated with grave offenses, primarily treason. It involved the execution of not only the individual found guilty, but also all their close and extended family members, categorized into 9 groups. The execution used was typically slow slicing, a gruesome execution method in which a person was subjected to a prolonged and agonizing death by multiple small cuts and incisions. The individuals subjected to this extreme form of punishment were categorized into 9 groups as follows: the criminal's living parents, the criminal's living grandparents, any children of the criminal, typically over a certain age, with those below that age often becoming slaves, any grandchildren of the criminal, also usually over a certain age, with the underage ones facing enslavement. Siblings and siblings-in-law encompassing the criminal's own siblings and those of their spouse, in cases where they were married. Uncles and aunts of the criminal, along with their spouses. The criminal's cousins, which, in the case of China, included up to second and third cousins. The criminal's spouse, the criminal's spouse's parents,